So I've been having a lovely conversation with someone on my Sexism in the Bible video lately, and he's basically, and not surprisingly, denied that there's any such stuff in the Bible. And he's gone on to say that we living in the 21st century can't sit in judgment of things that were relative to that different time period and different culture back then, and so on and so on. And he makes an interesting analogy to me, which is that he says, by my logic, if there was a woman who didn't have teaching experience that was denied a teaching position, and the position was given to a man with teaching experience, that would be sexist. I mean, obviously that's not true, and that was kind of his point. But in doing so, he makes a big mistake and misses a point of mine that I had made earlier, which I feel is very important and should be shared with you all in this video. And that's that when I point out these things that are sexist in the Bible, it's not just because I like being controversial, and it's not because I really don't understand the true context or something, and that there's some kind of a, legitimate discriminatory reason buried beneath all this, because there's not. In the analogy, it was a legitimate discrimination against the woman for not having teaching experience, because that's relevant to the position she was going for. It wasn't really anything to do with her gender or anything. But whereas in the Bible, that's exactly what it is. It's sexist, and I call it sexist because it is discriminating against women solely on the fact of them being women. And there's no better example of this than 1 Timothy 2:11-14, which says, "A woman should learn in quietness and full submission. I do not permit a woman to teach or to have authority over a man. She must be silent. For Adam was formed first, then Eve. And Adam was not the one deceived, it was the woman who was deceived and became a sinner." So right there, in that little portion that says, "For Adam was formed first, then Eve," you have, by lineage of who was created first, you have one that is subject to the other, because women were created second, therefore they are subject to men and cannot teach and stuff. I mean, it's right there. It's that these women are discriminated against according to the Bible, and these teachings are sexist because that's the way God wants it, basically. And that's no different from saying, well, you're a woman, so therefore you can't teach, and therefore you can't have authority over a man. And there's another passage also that's pretty relevant to this in 1 Corinthians 11:7-8. "A man ought not to cover his head, since he is the image and glory of God, but the woman is the glory of man. For man did not come from woman, but woman from man." And there we have it once again, perfectly clear. By the creation myth, logically, Paul is saying that women are not to have authority over a man, they are to be subjected to men, and they cannot teach, simply because that's the way that God decided things to be. Because they're women, by definition, they can't have those privileges, in other words. And that's sexism by definition. And this guy in the comments also criticized me for calling this sexism in the Bible primitive bigotry. But that's exactly what it is. And I think to, whitewash it or recognize it as anything else or try to excuse it away is a huge mistake. Because I don't know that there's been a bigger blight on human history than, discriminating against people for utterly random circumstances of birth, like their gender or ethnicity, or more recently, their sexual orientation. And whether or not you think that, this is just the way God created things, that women are inferior to men or something, or you try to, say that this is not sexist, it's just the way God chose to do things and stuff, that doesn't matter, and that doesn't make it not sexist, because there are racists out there who really and honestly believe that blacks are inferior to them, or Hispanics are inferior to them, or that whites are inferior to them. And there's lots of people out there who also believe that, women are inferior to them, or men are inferior, and so forth. So, trying to make this an argument of, well, this is just my beliefs and stuff, that doesn't fly. And trying to make it an argument, oh, well, that was just, relative to that time period and culture, that doesn't make it, excusable either. We have to recognize these things for what they are, and when we find something that's an immoral teaching, we have to call it out, or else there's no hope for us to make progress in the future.